Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. Hey, everybody. Our goal has always been to provide you with a solution to addiction that doesn't require you to go to rehab, do any steps, or go to meetings.
Or even be stuck on MAT regimens for the rest of your life either. And we built a workshop that we did last week and the week prior. We did 4 of them, and we picked the best one for you. And so it's a 2.5-hour workshop. It's called The Solution to Addiction. And it's amazing. We cover how to deconstruct your binge construct, why you do the things you do, because that's one of the questions we get all the time. Why do I keep doing this? And we give the answer for that. And we give the solution, a way out, a path out that makes sense.
Absolutely. When you get the Solution to Addiction course, we now have it as a course, and you can go right to thefreedommodel.org. It's right at the top. It says the Solution to Addiction. When you get it, you also get the Solution to Addiction book that we just wrote and the accompanying workbook. And you get the Freedom Model for Addictions book and the Freedom Model for the Family as well within that course module.
Yeah. So you literally have all the information, plus we teach you. And it's a really empowering, powerful course.
It is. So go to thefreedommodel.org or go right into the Freedom Model mobile app. And you'll see that if you hit, I think, the Discover, you'll see that we have the Solution to Addiction there for you.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran. And we wrote with our colleague, Stephen Slate, The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap. It's right over there.
Mm-hmm.
And today we have a really interesting topic. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah. Well, but first, I know you saw the ad for it. I just want to remind you that we have the Solution to Addiction, and it is affordable. It is effective. It has helped a lot of people already to solve their addiction and move on. You can get that at thefreedommodel.org. It's right at the top of the page, or you can get it right through our app now, the Freedom Model app, which if you don't have our app, you can go on to either our website, thefreedommodel.org, and get it, or you can go right through the Apple App Store or the Google app, the Google Play Store, I think it's called.
Yep. That's a 3-hour workshop that Michelle and I taught live. We took the best of the 4 live events, and it was recorded, and that became the workshop. There's also a book with that comes with it, and a book that is outside. It's an addendum.
Brand new book. We just finished it this yethere.
That's right. It's an addendum to the master text.
Mm-hmm.
You also get a workbook with that. And it's just tremendous. If you want to deconstruct why you're doing what you're doing, if you're confused about why you're doing your habit, whatever that habit might be. And within the workshop, we deal with PMO issues, gambling. We talk about substance use, obviously, because that's our forte. So it's all covered there.
Yeah.
And you can deconstruct and analyze why you do what you do, and then move on with your life.
Absolutely.
No meetings, no rehabs, no nonsense.
That's right. So what we're going to talk about today is I'm listening to this audiobook, and the last couple audiobooks I've listened to are really about changing behaviors and habits. And unfortunately, these people go down the neuroscience road and they start talking about your brain and mind like they're in constant conflict with each other, that you have this lizard brain, it's the limbic system, right, that kind of drags you over to seek pleasure and do these bad habits. And so the question I asked when I was looking for these books is it easier, right, is it more I don't know, natural, so to speak, to build bad habits than it is to build good habits? Why does it feel sometimes like it's a struggle to build good habits? And the question I wanted to ask, I asked myself was, maybe that's just a construct too.
Yeah, I think first we have to decide. There's a couple things that Michelle's bringing up. There's really two faces of this, and the first face is what is a good habit and what is a bad habit, according to who.
Right. Who gets to decide what's bad and what's good?
Right. I mean, if I eat a bowl of sugar and I like it and it makes me feel good, and or even if it makes me feel like shit, that's up to me. And if I enjoy that, then that's on me, and I might consider that the most virtuous, amazing habit ever made,
Well, look at, there was a time that smoking was looked at that way. There was a
Yeah.
time, just literally just before we were born, there was all kinds of advertising that smoking was helpful in many ways to people. And so there was a paradigm built around smoking that made it practically look like it was healthy for you.
Yeah, well, they actually said it. They
Yeah.
said it was healthy. Yeah, so good and bad are moving targets when it comes to habits and the views upon them. So, but let's assume for the sake of argument that we all agree that there are bad habits, that eating a bowl of sugar compared to eating a salad is the sugar is bad and then the
The
eating the
salad
salad
is
is
good,
good, right?
right?
And so let's dive into the limbic thing. I have to go through a brief um, piece in the weeds here that we've covered in other podcasts, but we have to frame it out really quick. And that is that if the limbic system or your brain in general is in charge of your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs,
And
your
behaviors.
desires, and your resultant behaviors, if the brain tissue is responsible for creating behavior, that means that the brain, according to the neuroscience perspective, and they ignore this fact, by the way, they never explain this. According to that theory, there would have to be a separate mind that the brain has. Because if the brain was working purely in creating habits and creating life based on chemicals with no apparent intelligence behind it, you would act in completely random zombie-like ways. There would be no logic, there would be no intelligence, there would be no memory, there would be no experiences, there would be no contrasting of options, there would be no thought involved. It would be that the brain, the limbic system, the lizard brain, what a bullshit thing that is. But as if it has a mind of its own
That's directing you.
into these bad habits. But nobody is willing to say this, to parse this out. And everybody ignores, and it's really weird. They ignore thought.
Right. Or they believe that thought is the direct result of chemical releases in the brain.
It bubbles up. But I want you to look at this podcast right now. The technology, the organization, the grand design of the human body and thoughts and language, and the fact that you're understanding the language, all of this is coming from something randomly bubbling up from your neurons. Really? Do you believe that? I don't believe that. I think that's fucking ridiculous.
Well, yeah, just think of the car you drove to work in today, the cell phone. I mean, the cell phone, really? That was just a random brain produced thing?
That is separate from you. See, the whole argument here is that there is a biochemical reality you don't have control over, called the lizard brain or the limbic system or whatever. And by ignoring the human intellect or consciousness or the metaphysical intelligence of the mind by just, it's not in the equation. And they have it as a result of bubbling neurons in a bloody, gelatinous, protein-filled organ, right? And then they say that thing is in control of you and you are your mind, but they don't say that. So there's all this missing stuff in their theory that they just simply freaking ignore. And here's what's wild. They're ignoring you. How rude is that? How utterly dismissive is it that they reduce you to the bubbling up of serotonin, dopamine, and other chemicals and electrical signals within neurons, that you have been reduced to being a slave of that? And only big pharma can come up with something like this. Ultimately, if you look, the odds behind the curtain of this whole movement is the treatment community and the pharmaceutical community. That's where this comes from. And drug cartels that want you to believe that you're run by all this shit.
But there's even more to it than that. So I wanna now, we preface that, but there is an idea, okay? There is a cultural construct that it is easier to build lazy habits than it is to build active habits. That it's easier to build poor eating habits than it is to build, like, healthier eating habits. That it's easier to develop maybe a heavy substance use problem or sit and scroll on your phone problem, right?
Okay, so now you're getting away from bad and good, the judgments, and you're going into the contrasting of healthy and unhealthy, which
yes.
is okay. So now we're being more precise. So let's get away from bad and good. I agree with that. I think that's really smart, because the bad and good argument is, we can talk about that for an entire podcast. That's all about judgments, morality, and that's a different topic. So now, is it
easier
to build health or unhealthy than healthy?
Exactly. That's the question. And there is a whole lot of information out there that says that's true. Okay? That says, and that's the limbic system, the things that's easier to build pleasure-seeking habits, so to speak, than things that seem like they're contrary to pleasure-seeking, that require a little more effort, that are perceived healthier, or better for us. And so I think if I were to ask our audience how many people believe that's true, I would guess probably 80 to 90% would say, yeah, I think that's true. But is it objectively real that we are drawn towards behaviors that are not healthy?
Okay. So I'm going to frame out a side of this, and people can, it's easy to say yes in Western culture.
Yes.
And here's why it's easier to say that, you tend towards the lazy, you tend towards the unhealthy, you tend towards these things, because
The quick fix.
Because as in Western culture, as a culture, we are generally unhealthy.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
there's evidence that supports what they're saying. But then when you go to third world, what we find is that their unhealthiness is disease-based, not obesity, things like,
not things that seem to be the direct result of opulence.
That's right. So what we find is that in cultures where there is a disproportionate amount of sedentary time, because we're affluent enough to have leisure time. In third world, you don't have leisure time. It's incredibly difficult to even eke out a moment here, a moment there of rest.
Right. It's all about survival.
Right. And what's interesting about this, I'm going to use an example that makes the point. So sugary cereals, candy are a huge industry in Western culture, right? And so is obesity. It causes obesity, it causes heart disease, causes diabetes, all the big problems. And diabetes is $100 billion industry annually in the United States alone, right? So there's big dollars in it. And then on the flip side, what causes it is the corn syrup industry, right? And corn syrup is in everything. So we create the problem, and then we have this issue. Now, here's what's interesting. When they took candy to third world countries that had never experienced candy without any marketing present, right? So you had a control group. When you watch, and there's videos of it, the people don't immediately, until they understand and have been taught that sugar is tasty and good, they don't naturally immediately like it. Sugar they find less offensive, but candy itself they find weird. They don't go, "Oh, I want more of that." They always show videos of the kids running behind a car trying to grab the candy that the soldiers are throwing out. But that's only where it's taught that candy is everything. And there's so many factors involved in those videos that it's not a one-dimensional scenario. There's the fact that the soldiers bring all kinds of goodness, that it's assumed that the candy is good. And so you have to teach people these things. It's not inherently pleasurable. You have to teach people pleasure in a culture. And here's another example. In third world, in certain cultures, here's an example of how strange a custom can be. So these are important things to expand your mind a little bit. There's a culture in South America where when the elder dies, they cut the skull open, they cook the brains, and they eat the brains because they think the brains are the wisdom, and they want to impart the wisdom. Now, we would go to jail for that. We would, it'd be grave robbing and there's all kinds of laws about that. So what you find pleasurable, what you find good, what you find is a good habit or a bad habit or a healthy habit or an unhealthy habit is completely subjective.
Exactly.
It's completely subjective.
Yeah. It's changing habits can be difficult just simply because we are habit creating creatures, which I've said before, and we create habits around things that we find, activities we find valuable, so they become incredibly efficient. We can do them with minimal effort, and that's all very good thing. Now, if we've created a habit that is, let's say we realize this habit no longer serves us well, or it's unhealthy for us, okay, and then we work to change it. Well, working to change a habit can be a little bit challenging initially, because you have to keep reminding yourself, I'm changing this habit. I'm not doing this anymore. But it's only as hard as we perceive it's going to be and believe it's going to be, right? To change it. If we just make a commitment and we decide, oh, I'm not doing that anymore, move on. I bet if you look back in your life, there's been plenty of things you've changed that way, just very quickly with no problems. But with respect to addictions, all of a sudden it becomes this battle because we believe it's going to be. And we also combine it with a belief that, oh, it's easier to build bad habits than it is to build good habits. Like that whole perception of bad and good, moral, immoral, actually feeds your desire for continuing that habit. If you think, because in the book I was reading, so they're like, nobody craves a salad. Well, that's just not true.
Right.
It's not true at all. I crave vegetables all the time. I want a vegetable. I want it with every meal. Okay. Maybe not so much salad, because raw vegetables and I sometimes don't get along, but depending on it's whatever you create value in.
Yeah. And whatever you learned is valuable. Here's another example. So you were talking about the salad thing, and it brought to mind a friend of ours, Jeff, went to Africa on a hunt. And when they're hunting leopards, they need a game animal as bait. So they shoot an impala, then that's the camp meat for the night and for the next week. So, and then they take certain parts of the body that they're not going to use, and they use it for bait for the leopard or whatever. Well, when they shot the impala, immediately the native trackers jumped all over it, gutted the animal, took out the stomach, cut the stomach open, which is putrefied gas and acids.
Gross.
Yeah. Now think about this. This is how gross this is to us. they asked Jeff, do you want some? And they were worried that he was going to want some. And they immediately put their hands in it and started eating it. And they thought it was, the most amazing. It's like a delicacy to them because it's already half digested. It gets rid of the cellulose.
Thinking, God, no.
And he's trying to be kind. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm really good.
That's all you dudes.
Yeah. So they crave not only a salad, but one that's putrefied and animal acid in the stomach and half digested. Think about that. Think about, they craved it. They were excited. They were waiting for the moment for him to shoot that animal so they could have their snack. Now, where did that idea come from?
That's right.
That idea came from generations of starvation where they've used the animal for everything, where every piece of that animal is sacred because it gives life. Yeah. And they developed a like for that. That's not biochemistry. That's not the limbic system driving them to that. That's straight up, hey, this is how I develop and can grow and stay healthy. And people can say, well, that's the limbic system. The body does tell us certain things. We got to eat.
Yeah, right.
But here's what's interesting. These people weren't starving. Okay? These trackers were not starving. So it's not the limbic system saying, eat the putrefied remains of this animal because you're starving. Now, maybe it started that way, but it was a custom. It was purely like a kid in our culture eating a Milky Way.
Well, that's it. It's you're not craving chocolate because you're starving or beer because you're thirsty. It's where your body is telling you need this. That's not how that works. A craving, when you want something, it's because you've already built value in that thing and you believe it has certain benefits for you. And at that moment, you've decided, I want those benefits.
That's right.
I mean, so what we're trying to do here, what I want to show people is the things that you've thought that seem to be accepted as like truth, scientific truth.
Yes.
I want you to question all of that shit.
Yeah, because when you start to look at the world through a world lens as a sociologist, be an armchair sociologist, learn about different cultures, and all of a sudden you realize that the customs in one place can be the complete polar opposite of a place just 10 miles away. From one person's family to another, they eat different things and they find variety because they learned as a child that this type of spaghetti sauce was better than this. That has nothing to do with your brain chemistry. Your brain isn't telling you that. My son, Austin, does not eat candy because we never gave him candy as a kid. He never developed a taste for it. And my other two is more we gave them candy. So they like sweets. My wife was much better with Austin. And he has a healthier eating habit. So the point is, he craves carrots. He craves over a Milky Way because that's what he learned. So you're not run by your biology. You're run by custom, by perceived benefits. And if they happen to be in the healthy category, then we say, awesome. If they happen to be in the counterproductive, unhealthy category, maybe there's something to change. Maybe you can develop a taste for healthy stuff, right? And the whole point of the freedom model is to analyze the pieces of your construct and do they serve me? Now, you can't analyze anything if you don't have a mind. If you believe you're run by your limbic system, if you believe you're run by some other mind in your brain that's battling your mind.
Right.
That's weird, you guys. Right. There has to be an opposing force that's manipulating your mind in that theory, but they ignore that.
Yeah. And if you believe that you're going to be drawn to certain things because everybody is. That's just not true. It's just not true. It's not true that everybody is drawn to sugar. It's not true that everybody is drawn to being sedentary. That is not reality. The truth of the matter is our bodies actually get better with more activity. Whenever I talk to women my age, I just turned 56. So whenever I talk to women my age and they talk about having, I don't really get much exercise because I have all this joint pain and I have, these kinds of health problems. My answer is always, that's because you don't get exercise. And not, I'm not saying that as a judgment call. I'm just not. That's just reality.
Right.
Okay.
Which is why you walk 3 to 4 miles a day.
I do.
Yeah.
I do, because if you want to keep moving, you got to keep moving. My mother has always said that. My mother, 79 years old, and she still gets up every day to go to like senior Zumba. Okay. Do you have to go to senior Zumba? No, I don't go to classes like that. I do yoga every morning at home myself. And then I walk 3 to 4 miles a day. That's what I do. So but I break it up. You don't have to go hike a mountain. You don't have to go to the gym, spend hours at the gym. You don't have to do any of those things. But am I drawn to walk? I am. Not every day, but I made a commitment to do it. So I still pretty much do it every day.
Yeah,
now, if I miss a day, do I beat myself up about it? No. I don't beat myself up about it. There's no fight that goes on in my mind. Like, I should do this. I don't feel like doing this. Oh, but I should really do this. And I'm kind of a piece of shit if I don't do. There's none of that. None of that has to happen. It's just value judgments. It's deliberating.
That's right. So let's get away from brain chemistry running you, and that there's two entities, two minds, duplicity here. There's not a brain mind that is now running, whether you call it the lizard brain or whatever the hell they call it. And there's just you.
Right.
With a processor that helps us function in the world, right? That takes the metaphysical and makes it physical. That's what the brain is for. It's the middleman. There's just you. There's just your mind. There's just you making value judgments about this cup of coffee. If you get jittery every time you drink a cup of coffee, then are you deliberating? Because the jitteriness also gives you energy, right? It's caffeine. So you say, I like my caffeine, but I don't like being jittery. That's called deliberating. That's not addiction. Get rid of the word addiction. That word is so problematic. Eliminate it out of you're not addicted to anything. I want to talk about just quick some research that they did where they took 200 people. They shot them up with morphine. These are people that had never had morphine before. Put them in a laboratory, shot them up, and waited until it wore off. And then they asked, how many of you want to be re-injected with a high dose of morphine again? And now the current narrative is, which we are teaching people, is that you're hooked and you're going to, and once you start down that line,
so wonderful. You just, everybody will want it. Right.
It's inherently pleasurable. Well, the reality is only 3 out of 200 people asked to be re-injected. So 197 said didn't even have enough value for them to bother. So the narratives now, if we took that, saying a different 200 people who had been exposed to opiate awareness, that's the study I'd like to see. Now we see that today. The control, that's the control group. But now we have the study subject of an entire culture that is being taught that opiates are powerful, amazing. They addict you. There's red labels. We've raised the value way up here. And now we see people are dying left and right from it.
Yeah, but even then, so yes, the death rate has gone up. The overdose rate has gone up. But the rate of people getting hooked has not.
That's true. That's right. Per capita. That's right.
So we have all of these people that get prescribed opiates every year, which is declining. The percentage of people has gone up slightly getting addicted, so to speak. But it's still about 2 to 3%. That's it. That's it. The vast majority of people take opiates as prescribed, and they don't believe and buy in to all the nonsense, because we are incredibly resilient people. Human beings have this amazing ability to reason. And I mean, it's remarkable that we can still function in a world where we're told we can't.
Right.
Really? I mean,
yeah.
That's so remarkable.
So know that bad and good are according to whatever custom you live in. So is morality. It depends on the culture you live in. And if you're taught that sugary cereals are the best breakfast, right? The idea that the most important breakfast, or I'm sorry, the most important meal of the day is breakfast.
Right.
That's simply not true. But that came out of General Mills back, a century ago when they were trying to sell sugary cereals.
Yeah. Follow the money.
Yeah. And so that became sort of a mantra that took nearly 5 decades to gain traction. So and then eggs were bad. We find out now that eggs are good. It's whatever the lobby is that's trying to sell something to you in any culture, whether it's third world or not. So you will quote unquote crave what you're taught to crave, and then you'll build your own paradigm and construct around that standard. But if the standard is that you're biohacked and you don't have a mind and that there's a lizard brain running the show, holy shit, are you lost?
Yeah.
You will be utterly powerless, or at least feel powerless to change your life, because you're at the mercy of some biochemical thing. And that's just not true.
Yeah. So look, the next time you start, if you're like I was, there's a period in my life a long time ago now, but where I felt like I was drawn to these bad behaviors, where why is it I can remember saying, why does it seem so much easier to eat bad foods than good foods? Why does it seem so much easier to be sedentary and sit on the couch and watch television than it is to get up and go for a walk? It isn't. That's your belief system. And if your belief system is that it's a fight to get myself to go do healthier activities, it's time to change your belief system.
There it is.
Because it isn't a fight. It's pretty great, actually.
Yeah.
When you start focusing, first of all, when you change your belief system and you realize, oh, no, I can actually, it's not a fight. If I just look at the benefits and think, yeah, I really do want to do this, so I'm going to go do it and stop the bullshit and just go do it. And then you quickly see the benefits of doing what you're doing. And then you also, when you combine it with, I don't really like that other activity as much as I thought I did.
That's right.
Because I don't like the downsides of that. I don't like the high costs of this other activity. I'd much rather get the benefits of this activity. Things shift and become easier, but I think it does start with changing your thinking on behavior, changing your thinking and not stop listening to the neuroscience jargon. Okay, I'm sure there are different parts of our brain that help us to do different things, but in the end, you get to be in charge.
Your mind is what's in charge.
Yeah.
And that is not a slave of the brain. It's the other way around.
It is. Gosh, we did that pretty concisely.
Yeah, well, it's a small, narrow topic, but it's a powerful one, because ultimately, if you believe you're bio-centered, you're in trouble.
And we've done a lot. We're reading a lot of books on this right now. We are working on a book specifically for porn addiction, PMO it's called. And so we're learning a lot of where this goes. I actually watched a video this morning. It was a young girl that did kind of this poetry thing, and she was talking about the poem was about being a slave to your phone and social media feeds. And it was, to me, it was very long, and it got kind of sad, because now we're telling children. Okay. So now we have the narrative about opiates, and now we see more young people. Mark, you were right yesterday. We recorded this yesterday. I'm sorry. My stream of consciousness is going crazy right now. We recorded this yesterday, and Mark did this stat. Well, I checked on it because I was like, I don't believe that's true. And he was right. And the stat is the number one cause of death under the age of 44 years old, according to the CDC here in the US, is accidental injury, right? It used to be car accidents.
Yeah.
It isn't anymore. It's poisoning. which is primarily the overdose has led to it. So that overdose is the number one cause of death, accidental death, of people under the age of 44. That flip-flopped. Do you want to know when that flip-flopped from car accidents? Right around 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
Right at the height of the opiate awareness craziness.
That's
okay.
right.
And it flip-flopped significantly
Mhm.
because fentanyl started coming in 2010 to 2012.
While being married to the idea that opiates are powerful.
Yes.
So you have an agent that is black market coupled with mythology, and you get the hockey stick effect.
So now we have a generation of young men primarily who are being told, if you watch porn at a young age, you're going to become a monster.
Yeah, you're going to be a pedophile. You're going to go deep. You're going to go dark. You're going to you're going to be a monster. And these now
So now it's creating it.
Yeah. And now I've always coached, as Michelle has with females, on porn problems. We've done that for years, but it was sporadic. But in the last year, it's probably 50% of the people we coach now, because they believe that now I have a whole generation of guys that are probably 30 years or less that have never had sex, they believe their dopamine and serotonin is attached to pornography. This is all by the porn industry, by the way. They love this because it just keeps people in the feed, right? Being fed this monster, and then they feel they're the monster, and then it just grows in this negative feedback loop. But it's all bullshit. You're not run by your biochemistry.
And even with all of this hype, it has gone up by a small percentage, that the problem is bigger now than it's ever been because of the hype. It's still only about 6 to 8% of the people who watch pornography have this problem, right? Of men.
And that's usually where
1 to 3% of women.
And this is where it stays with all quote unquote problematic habits.
Yeah.
Right. So you have, whether it's gambling, whether it's substance use, it's usually 10% or less of those that are involved in the activity have a deep problem, a profound problem with their habit. And that's what we work with, are those people. So, but they're just lost in misinformation,
yes,
which diverts them from the reality that they prefer this.
Yes. And now you have, it's the dopamine, the phone, getting likes, your social
it drives me
media,
crazy.
Kids and their phones. And so now that's also, there's this big awareness with that. And it's like,
it's building value.
It's building value. It's making people think I'm a slave to my phone now. Look at, and it's predicated on the idea that this is a bad behavior.
And it's predicated on brain chemistry, right?
Yeah.
That you're a slave to chemicals.
Yep.
That the chemicals are what drive you as a person. And that is absolutely 100% not true.
It is not true. So challenge all of this stuff. It is this stuff. It's problematic.
Hey,
these beliefs are problematic.
Read this book. Watch all our podcasts. It's all there for you. You don't have to question this. If you want to understand why you have a problem, get the Solution to Addiction workshop, take the course, read the book, do the workbook. It's 3 hours of your life.
Yeah.
It'll change the way you see everything.
It will. It will. You are in charge.
That's right. You always
really
have
are.
been.
It's time to challenge what you believe.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And our next podcast, tomorrow we're going to be doing an interview with a wonderful woman in the UK who was a part of the 12-step cult for a long time, and she wants to tell her story to you. So stay tuned for that for our next podcast.
All right, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, but you don't want to go to rehab or group meetings? That's why we created the non-12-step Freedom Model Coaching Program in 2011. Through video conferencing on Zoom or Skype, you can work privately with a certified Freedom Model coach from your home or office on your schedule. And here's the best part. With the Freedom Model, you'll never be labeled an addict or an alcoholic, and we won't tell you to go to 12-step meetings or hamper your life with endless recovery rituals. Instead, you can learn exactly why addiction isn't a disease and how you can solve the problem for good and move on with your life. Do you want to be completely free from your addiction? Do you want to never have to attend meetings, rehabs, or addiction counseling ever again? And do you want to solve your problem from the comfort of home? Then call us at 888-424-2626 to talk with a Freedom Model coach today and experience the Freedom Model difference.